Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Quispamsis Town Council evening. It's our regular meeting for April the 7th of 2026. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let the record show that it's 6:04. Also like to acknowledge that Councillor Donovan is absent this evening. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Looking for the land acknowledgement and moment of reflection by Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists on the traditional territory of the Wolastoqey, Maliseet, and Mi'kmaq people whose ancestors along the Passamaquoddy tribes signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crowns in the 1700s. We would like to take a moment to pay respects to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias and always in the best interest of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer. And I have a few remarks this evening. I'd like to, first of all, thank Deputy Mayor Scryer for sitting in the mayor's chair on March the 17th while I was away. Thank you for doing that, Deputy Mayor. I also want to wish everyone a belated happy Easter. I hope that you were able to create some cherished memories during this special time with family, friends, and loved ones. And it's good to be back and good to bring you some wonderful news from earlier today. We have been preparing for major infrastructure work in our downtown core with the Reimagine Hampton Road project. This plan features a multi-use path, a redesigned streetscape, and water infrastructure, literally laying the groundwork for residential and commercial growth in this critical area of our community. Town and local government leadership have been advocating for months for financial support from other levels of government to assist with construction costs. Earlier today, in this very room, the Honorable Wayne Long, Secretary of State for Canada Revenue Agency and Financial Institutions and Member of Parliament for St. John, Quispamsis, announced a federal investment of more than $2 million in a water distribution center system expansion on Hampton Road to provide a safe and reliable supply of drinking water. This contribution means the town will have to borrow less to complete this project, reducing the financial burden on our residents. We are very thankful for this support, but we know there are other projects on the horizon. We will continue to promote the benefits of investing in our community infrastructure and recreation. You can find out more about today's announcement by visiting the News and Notices section of our website at quispamsis.ca. And congratulations and thank you to everyone involved in the 2026 U18 Atlantic Hockey Championship, which took place at the Qplex over the Easter weekend. This was a tremendous event and once again showcased our ability as a community to attract high-level competitions. I was proud to participate in the ceremonial face-off before Thursday's game with the St. John Vitoes and again ahead of the gold medal game on Sunday. Congratulations to the Halifax Macs, who won this year's U18 Atlantic Hockey Championships, and they are off to Peterborough, Ontario for the Nationals. And I want to thank Mr. Abandonato's grade 3 class from Glen Falls School in St. John for coming to visit me here at Town Hall last week. I had a lot of fun showing the students around council chambers, the Arts and Culture Park, Firefly Park, and more. And they also got to meet everyone down the main hallway, and downstairs in the engineering department. So they had a great time, and they were warmly welcomed by all of our staff. It's always rewarding to see our future leaders get an early look at how communities work, and I love to share my experiences with them. Organizations and groups can now apply for fall and winter ice time for the 2026-27 season. Visit the applications and forms page on our website, quispamsis.ca, and you'll find the fall and winter ice request form under Community Services Applications. Requests must be submitted by Monday, April the 27th. And April is National Oral Health Month, and this is National Dental Hygienist Week in Canada. National Dentist Hygienist Week highlights the importance of maintaining good oral health practices while helping Canadians to understand the vital role dental hygienists play in our healthcare system. This year's theme, Oral Health for Total Health, reminds us that taking care of our mouth, teeth, and gums positively impacts other aspects of our lives. In recognition, Quispamsis is lighting up the town hall in purple this week. And one final reminder, there will be a municipal election on May 11th, 2026, and if you are filing your papers, nomination papers, or are interested in running, the deadline is this Friday at 2 o'clock sharp. So that's Friday, April the 10th at 2 o'clock sharp. No papers will be received after 2 p.m. on April the 10th. So moving forward, I am looking for a disclosure of interest. If there's anything on the agenda with which you might have a conflict, please remove yourself and let the clerk know why you're leaving. There are no presentations this evening, no public hearings, minutes from the previous meeting, March 17th, regular meeting. Could we have a motion on that, please? Councillor Thompson.
I move that the minutes of the March the 17th, 2026 regular meeting be approved as presented.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Unfinished business. Potential access between Route 1, Mackay Highway, from Millennium Drive. Staff report from Director of Engineering and Works. Before I go to the Director, I'm going to go to Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the rest of council, the staff report from Mr. Lozier will certainly speak to the technical details of what's being proposed and in response to the question that had come up at a previous meeting. You will hear that while an off-ramp from Highway 1 is not recommended, an on-ramp onto Highway 1 is possible, provided it aligns with Cedar Ridge Drive and provided associated traffic control requirements are met between Cedar Ridge and Millennium and the proposed on-ramp. Further study is required, though, if council wishes to proceed, and before coming to that, as Mr. Lozier provides the details, I'd just ask council to consider what are the overall merits here. The technical details are certainly well within Mr. Lozier's wheelhouse, and he can answer any questions you have, I'm sure. I think for me, the biggest question is this the overall direction that council wishes to pursue, and if so, under what timeline? But with that in mind, I'd certainly, with your permission, Your Worship, encourage further detail from Mr. Lozier. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Mr. Lozier, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Mr. Watson's highlighted a lot of the main items for council's consideration. The memo itself is relatively self-explanatory. A couple of additional points, and one that was brought up this evening as well. As we recall, it was brought back to our attention from the Councillor Olson with respect to investigating this particular avenue. Council did approve monies for a preliminary engineering review. So the findings came back as outlined was that the the site distances and the technical geometrics would permit an on-ramp onto Route 1, the highway, from Millennium Drive, provided that it took place at Cedar Ridge Boulevard. Now, that will require, as noted, a little bit of additional work at Cedar Ridge. The intersection itself probably would be more suited to a roundabout than a controlled stop intersection or just a straight signalized intersection. There are potential side effects of additional traffic on Cedar Ridge Boulevard and the surrounding areas, which would warrant some type of initial investigation to those implications. The point that was brought up this evening is this particular project was not identified in our transportation master plan document because that document looked at overall general policies, procedures, things of that nature, didn't get into specific intersections. That having been said, however, now that we've got this on the radar, the final version of the transportation master plan will include this as an item for council's consideration. And as Mr. Watson mentioned, establishing it when in the strategic priorities should it occur if desired. We were looking at a couple of inexpensive or free items to take place over the next little while. The first of which is actual communication with DTI with regards to whether they would even consider the non-ramp and the type of conditions or situations that they would require before they considered it. And secondly, there has been some initial groundwork with our CAO, with the neighboring municipality, who shared this basic study, whether they would be interested in that community participating in any future studies or eventual construction of a particular ramp if it were to come. Because one of the observations that was made in discussions with our consultants was that the construction of this particular ramp, if it is to proceed, would also have significant impacts on the traffic heading down Campbell Drive, the fire station entrance, onto the highway, things like that. So there's mutual benefits of that, and that warrants some level of discussion with the neighboring communities. But it is a project that has not been in our radar or in our budget. So anything would have to be deferred to 2027 unless there was a reallocation of funds into 2026 that council sees fit. And that's why the recommendations were really are more subjective to council's desires than a specific recommendation. But they do frame some of the points for consideration that we want to have. So I'll leave that, Your Worship, for if there's any questions or discussions that myself or Mr. Watson could answer.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. And I'd just like to remind council, I remember when the discussion of the strategic plan came up in 2018 or 2019, I believe it was 2018. One of the things that we had said back then is that is your guiding light, your guiding principle that directs you on what you're going to accomplish over a certain period of time. And when I read that particular item or read about it, I recalled that it wasn't part of the strategic plan at this point in time. It hasn't been identified. It wasn't identified in the 2026 budget, and nor had we dedicated any resources to doing any kind of a study on this, other than to send it off to DTI and let them see if this is something that they are interested in. So I would caution that as we move forward with some of these new items that have not been on the radar, that we are very careful with how we approach these, because they can become very costly financially, and they can become very time-consuming for our staff, who are already dedicated now to the work that we've budgeted for in 2026. So thank you. Is there any comment on this? Councillor Olson, your light was on.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. One of the reasons that I brought this forward at this time was that I recognized a significant increase in the traffic in the last year or so. We've had a lot of growth in both Rothsay and Quispamsis, and there's a bottleneck going up Campbell Drive, and I think that's a deterrent to emergency vehicles. And it's quite a bottleneck at busy times of the day and morning especially. So I thought that if we had means of egress further down Millennium Drive, it would reduce significantly the bottleneck at the Campbell Drive and the #1 station in Rossley Fire Department there. So I think it would be advantageous to have that. I had a few members of the general public saying they thought it was a good idea. I didn't do it specifically for that, but I was interested in hearing the positive feedback when they heard about it initially in the press. But I think it's something that I think is materialized fairly quickly out here, and just the extent of the growth of traffic. And we're seeing cars backed up on Campbell Drive going down by Canadian Tire there that we've never seen before. And it's just one of those things that I think that there has to be a rethinking of traffic flow, so that there's more people going to the 119 ramp off down by the trailer park when they're coming home, and then coming back into Quispamsis from that intersection. So I think that getting people out of Quispamsis heading into the city, which is always a busy area, that this would be a significant improvement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Olson. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to our Director of Engineering. I guess I'm just wondering, in the past, was it the municipalities that would be asking for and paying for better access to the highways, or was this done on a provincial level? And I ask this questions for a couple of reasons. I agree with Councillor Olson, what he's been stating. Yes, it would be nice to have an off-ramp or maybe an on-ramp there, but with, a few years ago, they added a third lane to the bridge just to make things better. Is it now maybe the Campbell Drive needs to be 4 lanes with better access and quicker access? Because years and years ago, where the Shell station is, that's where you used to go out to the highways. So maybe it stays where it is now, but you're going up Campbell Drive and just by the Kent, and I don't know, that's not our land, but could that be a better exit at that point? So I guess my question, before we divulge a lot of time and money into this, is this something we should be doing ourselves, or is this a provincial thing? And yes, we want Quispamsis residents, but we want Rossley residents. I mean, we look at the infrastructure that's being built or planning to be built here in the next little while. It's going to get busier and busier. So is Campbell Road the one that needs to be redesigned so that you can get out quicker because it's already a main street? Or is it trying to make one farther up Cedar Ridge, which you're going to get people through the side street? So I guess it's just a question, but I'm also, is it our job to pay and do all this stuff, or is this something that the province should be looking at for the municipalities to get safer access for all residents? So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Through you. Historically, back in the day, the governing body, the major governing body, whether it be the federal government, since it's a Trans-Canada, or the provincial government, would assign ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps on their bypasses. More recently, what's happened now, it falls upon the community to take those costs. And we've seen that transition from the province to the municipality. And so now I can't see any communities, I can't recall any communities that have had access points paid for by the federal partner or provincial partner, unless that particular federal partner or provincial partner was looking at some type of a redesign for that highway in the first place. So they would be a partner to it, not undertake it. Even if you look up at Moncton and the Coverdale and those areas, Moncton actually, and Dieppe constructed some of those, the dog bone roundabouts by the airport. So they had major partnerships with those. So those were not driven by the federal government or the provincial government. They're driven by the community, but still the community ended up putting, I think one was $8 or $13 million into the dog bone one that Dieppe put into. So there's some costs associated with it that now is downloaded strictly to the municipalities. And the second thing that we've seen is and even just going through this exercise, The consultant has done this in other communities, and what they're advising us is that the province and their partners, whether it's Gateway or what are the other federal partners, are very particular on how you access that highway. And, you know, even just using the example that you've provided, heading it to Campbell Drive, when you look at Campbell Drive, there's an incline grade coming, when you come off the point at Campbell Drive, you make that right-hand turn, there's an incline, so there's no sight distances. So they would not see that as a suitable solution, just to make a right-hand turn and off you go, because there's a transition to go up speed, and then there's immediately an off-ramp to go onto the bridge at the airport arterial. So we had discussed a lot of these locations where it could occur. And even to your point about an off-ramp or an on-ramp, and to Councillor Olson's question or comment about, you know, coming from the city, there are no suitable locations coming from the city, because you're going to require a transition over top of or underneath, likely over top of the highway, to get to the other side of the highway from the right-hand side. So anything that we're looking at now is essentially going to be leaving the community onto the Route 1, going west, going to the west side. And so really that's the only movement that we have the flexibility to introduce ourselves, unless, again, the province, and there's lobbying from both communities to say, we need another on-off ramp for our region, and then that's when you get the idea driven by the communities in collaboration, to use a word that we heard this morning, in collaboration with all the partners to get something done. That's a long and extensive and expensive process that we've seen in other communities. So, you know, what we're looking at here is probably it's going to have its own hoops. But it's going to probably be the easiest way to get some level of traffic relief for the communities if it happens. And to sort of to build off what we had been talking about a little earlier, you know, we're looking at traffic relief not only at the Campbell Drive-In, but also at our own Millennium Drive-In at the McEsso, that intersection. Now you'll have people, instead of having to backtrack to the co-op and out, they can actually go and make a shorter turn. So there's a little bit of impact, and that's the interim recommendation that was made, you know, as part of the sort of the memo this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for everyone for your input. And I understand the merits of the proposal, but I do feel that I would like to stick to the plan that we have going on right now, the strategic plan. That being said, this can become part of the master transportation plan to be looked at down the road. Not in the, I don't see right now spending that money on 65,000 and for thinking about it. I have no problem with it becoming part of the master transportation. One of the several. How many recommendations do we have in that plan? Quite a few. Check marks. I was looking at it today and I thought we have a lot to cover in the master transportation plan. So I would like to set this one aside for another day and just stick to the plan as to where we're going. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I concur with a lot of the comments around the horseshoe. I think that in the future is definitely going to be needed, so I'm glad we're looking at it, and I think it's a good idea to put it in the master transportation plan, especially if that's where we're going to have it. I think it's important for us to look ahead and figure out what impact that has on Millennium Drive as well as Cedar Ridge, because those are two areas that have not been kind of addressed yet. So if we know that eventually there might be a roundabout and a lot more traffic, it's good to know that in the future it's going to be there, so we can kind of plan accordingly for those streets. But those two streets are something that I hear about quite often in terms of safety and speeds and all that stuff, which we'd be adding to. So, you know, again, I like the idea of us putting it in the master transportation plan so that we can potentially plan around that thought. But for this year, I think it's just more so just adding it to the transportation master plan versus putting money towards it and just focusing on the things that we've agreed to. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Councillor Bigger, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to our Director of Engineering for some explanation of the realities that we're facing. My interest in this concept is about principally and almost entirely about trying to relieve traffic stresses, especially in the rush hour corridors, at our intersections, our major collector kind of roads, and I certainly see value. Like objectively, I think this is a smart idea, and notwithstanding the mitigations that have kind of been suggested related to, you know, being able to even come off the highway and onto Millennium based on the, you know, inability to do that just functionally. There's still value, objectively speaking, from my perspective, in terms of what it would help to accomplish to reduce traffic up at the McEsso intersection in the morning and so on, which is quite something at times. And of course, for our friends over in Rothsay, we all end up moving back and forth, and as has been stated, Campbell Drive and over at the by the fire station, Station 1, it's very, very busy. One thing I've learned in the last 5 years is that what is objectively a good idea doesn't necessarily get you there. And it seems that there's a lot of wisdom being expressed here around the notion of maybe including this as an item within the master transportation plan, as Mr. Logier suggests and has been kind of identified by other councillors and the deputy mayor. So I think that that's probably a good idea. I would be open to, you know, the idea of the proposed $6,500 cost into 2027 budget deliberations for some traffic impact analysis, but I don't know if that's really merited even until we've had a chance to maybe muse on it, or the next council, I should say, has an opportunity to review that and consider it within the master transportation plan. So I think it's a great idea, and I think it's probably something that a lot of people would, well, Councillor Olson has talked to some folks in the public who've said that they think it's a good idea, you know. But I think that probably that's the right move, is to place it within the master transportation plan. Stick to the plan, as we've said. We certainly don't want to divert away from that which we've already ratified and committed ourselves to. So let's just factor it in and make it part of our considerations going forward. I just don't want to lose sight of it, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Mr. Logier, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And one of the points, and Councillor Bigger had just sort of referenced it with respect to the merits of including it in a 2027 budget deliberation, even just the initial $6,500 traffic analysis. One of the things that we've found by doing some of the preparation work ourselves in advance, say, for example, we were paving in Cedar Ridge or Sunset Acres in that subdivision, and come to find out that we've just paved that street, and one of the recommendations coming out of this initial review would have been, oh, if you're going to do this, you should introduce some type of traffic calming in. So now we've got to go back afterwards and something that we've just paved to dig up. So the merit of an initial review is that if there's something structurally, I'll use the term structurally required, or from an infrastructure perspective on the impacted streets, and it's going to be our responsibility regardless, because it's well within the subdivision. It would be nice to know those things so we can plan for it in our own 5-year street capital, and knowing that this is a 5, 6, 7 year, the eventual connection, if it does come about, we're doing these things with the knowledge that, okay, we're doing this now, we're preparing for something in the future. That's one of the main merits of seeing what happens. And the second merit would be from a development perspective, if there is a shift in development on Millennium Drive, for example, or even just adjacent to Millennium Drive, some of the side streets, similar to what we're seeing here on the Hampton Road, where you've got single-family residential or residential properties that are being redesignated for higher density dwellings. It would be nice to know, okay, what type of things should we be on the aware for? So, you know, I agree with the approach that council is taking. It is a future project. It's nice to keep it on the radar. The only merit might be the 2027 budget deliberations, and relatively speaking, it is something that if we get agreement with the town of Rothsay, for example, it might be something that might be cost shared. But normally, $6,500 is the level of a traffic study or an engineering study in general that the town does on a regular basis, and I don't think it would be really onerous on our budget if it was considered under the 2027 programs. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you, and to build on Mr. Lozier's comments, always well taken for sure, and I appreciate the technical expertise he brings for sure every day. This one, to my mind, it's actually dovetailing quite nicely into a plan forward, in my mind. One would be to embed this work in the master transportation plan as suggested. The other is there are a couple of low cost, if not no cost, explorations that we could undertake in the meantime in preparation for budget 2027 conversation. One would be exploration of DTI's appetite to even go here, and the second would be an initial or a deeper conversation with Rosse with respect to the potential to cost share if it was to be approved. So one opportunity might be for us to explore, for council to direct that exploration to happen, those two explorations with DTI and with Rosse, and know that we can bring it forward as part of budget 2027 deliberations, and knowing that it is also embedded in the master transportation plan. So it's captured and will be, if not addressed in 2027, it is not lost. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. And I think this is a real reflection of the visionaries that Quispamsis have experienced over the past number of years. And certainly with Councillor Olson bringing this up and realizing that after today's announcement, we are going to have a much greater number of people living on the Hampton Road who are going to have to exit either east or west off of the highway, and knowing that that is coming, and knowing that this council is agreeing to saying, yes, we're going to do some studies, we're going to do some preliminary investigation on this, it speaks volumes for how Quispamsis moves and develops. We're not saying, okay, we've got an idea, we want to move on it today, because we haven't prepared for that. We haven't discussed that before now. So I would say that this is certainly positioning us well for the development that's going to go on the Hampton Road, so that we can sort of dovetail the two, the development that's going to be on the Hampton Road with changes that possibly could take place on the highway. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Worship. I guess I'm using the numbers on here. Number one, the very first one, to just investigate with DTI, that could put the kibosh on everything. So I would say, sure, go with that one. And the other one would be to, discuss with Rosse, because if they're not interested in any of that, that sort of points us in a different direction altogether. So I'm in favor of the DTI. Again, it could be stopped right there, and also engaging with Rosse. But the rest of it, it's all pertaining to the 2027.
Is that the motion that you are making?
Yes.
Okay. Are you reading the motion as is, or did you want to leave it just to DTI?
Yes, I would just suggest that it be number 1 and number 4.
So there's a motion on the table.
Oh, and included in the transportation master plan.
So there are 3 aspects to this.
The final document.
Going to DTI, discussing with Rosse, and putting this into the master transportation plan.
Yep.
Okay. May I have a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Scryer, and I'll go now on the question to Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just would be remiss not to mention, if we're talking about concerns around highway access, is if you take a bigger step back and look at, a lot of the development that's happening on the other side of the 119. A lot of people are taking the 119 because Means Cove is such a mess, and the intersection at Palmer Brook to get on the highway is very scary. So, there's a lot of barriers that I think if we're looking at big access or big picture in terms of figuring out how we move people around and access to the highway, I think a lot of people are going towards the McEsso because the roads are a lot more conducive to get out on the 119 to the McEsso, because again, the, Means Cove and then down Hampton Road, that intersection, as I've mentioned in the past, isn't overly conducive, but that would also take the pressure off the 119 if the roads kind of supported people going that way. So,
Thank you, Councillor Luck. On the question, Madam Clerk, would you mind reading the motion again?
Council recommend that the CAO be directed to investigate with DTI the potential for an on-ramp to Route 1 from Millennium Drive. 2, engage with Rossay for the purpose of exploring cost sharing on all future costs associated with this project. And finally, 3, identify this project within the town's 5-year roadmap and update the 5-year capital plan accordingly.
Thank you. On the question, Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a perhaps friendly amendment there that I think the suggestion was, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be to embed this project into the master transportation plan, as opposed to the 5-year roadmap and the 5-year capital plan. One will lead to the other, but I think the discussion was around embedding it in master transportation plan.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. On the question, please vote. Thank you. Motion carried 6-0. Item number 9, correspondence. There is none. Item number 10, A, 213 Hampton Road, PIDs 00249854 and 3010276 from CC to ID rezoning application. Number 1, consideration of approval, proposed municipal plan bylaw, amendment number 054-10. And this is for consideration of third reading. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas a notice has been published on the Town of Quispamsis website pursuant to Section 15.3 and 15.4 of the Local Governance Act, summarizing bylaw amendment number 054-10, that received first and second reading at the February 17th, 2026 regular meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that third and final reading be given to proposed municipal plan bylaw amendment number 054-10.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to thank staff, in their last report for kind of a comprehensive kind of review of how they're going to. I know that there was a number of residents at the last public hearing just with concerns, and I just appreciate the thoroughness of how all those things are going to be addressed. So I just wanted to thank staff for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't write down here. Councillor Bigger, you moved the motion, did you? Yeah, correct. And the seconder was? Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you. On the question, Deputy Mayor Scryer,
And
please.
thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Colburn or Mr. Loge. My question was regarding the loading zone. We're going down, I believe, from 2 loading zones to 1. Let me just get it here. Yes, the loading zone, traffic study, and about the traffic study being done prior to the Hampton Road Master Transportation Plan. So I guess 2 questions, I'll get it straight. One is the loading zone, we've gone down to 1 versus 2. And the other question was this traffic study incorporated into the Hampton Road Master Transportation Plan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Loge?
Mr. Colburn's
Oh,
online.
Mr. Colburn, hello, welcome. Mr. Colburn is online this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, in terms of the loading zones, so the development's going to be done in phases. So that's going to be addressed as the development moves forward. And the other thing important to note here is the loading zones are reflective of commercial developments. So those things would be mirrored or adjusted according to the types of businesses or tenants that would fall within those commercial zones. The important thing is in terms of the traffic or in terms of the parking ratios and making sure there's adequate parking for the residential component as well. In terms of the traffic study, so the traffic study, that the information would obviously be relayed as part of the Hampton Road work, and as part of this development, the developer is required to incorporate any recommendations from the Hampton Road work into this particular development. So as I've mentioned in my staff report, there's a bit of a minor adjustment to the actual access into this particular property is going to be a bit of a widening, and that is to accommodate to provide for better flow of traffic exiting the property. And that's reflective of the work on the Hampton Road as well. So these things will be working in conjunction with each other. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Colburn. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question, it's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. Seeing there are none, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Councillor Bigger, please.
I was just prepared to make a motion on the next item, agenda item.
On item 10.2, approval of, consideration of approval, zoning bylaw, amendment number 038-53. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Your Worship, whereas a notice has been published on the Town of Quispamsis website pursuant to Section 15.3 and 15.4 of the Local Governance Act, summarizing bylaw amendment number 038-53 that received first and second reading at the February 17th, 2026 regular meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that third and final reading be given to zoning bylaw number 038-53, rezoning 213 Hampton Road, PIDs 00249854 and 3010276 from central commercial to integrated development.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question. Councillor Olson.
No, I'm
No?
okay, yeah.
Seeing there are no questions, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 10B, 298, 300, and 302 Model Farm Road, PID number 30367925 and 30367916 and 3067908 Neighborhood Commercial NC to Rural RU. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move, whereas notice has been published on the Town of Quispamsis website pursuant to Section 15.3 and 15.4 of the Local Governance Acts, summarizing bylaw amendment number 038-55 that received first and second reading on the March 17, 2026 regular meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that third and final reading be given to zoning bylaw number 03855, rezoning 298, 300, and 302 Model Farm Road, PID number 303-67925, 303-67916, and 306-7908 from Neighborhood Commercial NC to Rural RU.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Deputy Mayor Schreier. On the question. Please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. And item 10B1, consideration of approval, proposed zoning bylaw number amendment number 03-65, consideration of third reading. Or did I just do that? Sorry. Item 10C, my apologies on that. Proposed remuneration bylaw amendment number 018-10, staff report from Chief Administrative Officer. And this is for consideration of third reading. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to the rest of council, just draw your attention to the staff report that was included in your package with respect to this item, and staff's attempts to recognize council's interest in some flexibility with respect to the reimbursement of work-related expenses in their performance of duties as council members, deputy mayor, and mayor. This started, as you know, back, well, actually before, in the fall was our first exploration of potential changes, and had been reviewed in more detail at both the January 20th and March 17th regular meetings. Last meeting we had heard that there was some question around the 20% overage clause and what that would, what implications that would bring, especially later in the year for council members that would be bringing forth expenses at that time. We have reviewed that and considered other options that would be either administratively simpler or that would provide the flexibility that council was seeking. And in priority order, from the perspective of the administrative efficiency of the expense reimbursement practices, the administrative efficiency option is to leave the existing expense budget allocations as they are and don't add flexibility for additional expenditures, recognizing that that's a fairly rare event anyway, and that and then other sources of income, including the stipend for performance of duties, could be used to offset any overage. Second option would be to require the mayor, deputy mayor, and each councillor to submit a costed learning plan by January 31st of each year. We would then add that up to make sure that the total does not exceed the total allocated budget. And then third would be to, in terms of priority order from an administrative perspective, would be continue to consider this 20% overage option. But that does come with the implication of a potential shortfall at the end of the year when somebody does need. So that, Councillor Miller, your question around that is absolutely a valid one, and it would be a risk of pursuing that direction. So that said, certainly welcome any questions or conversation on the matter, and hopefully council will see one of those options as an amenable one, knowing that our preference would be, from a staff perspective, would be for number one. And I thank you for your time. Thanks for your worship.
Thank you, Mr. Watson, and I'll throw my 2 cents worth in on that. I do feel that once we set a budget, we should be living within that budget for travel. Given the increase that's coming up in the very near future for flying and gas costs and so forth, I'm just wondering if perhaps there may have to be an adjustment for that, depending on the amount that it is increased, just to make sure that councillors are able to make those commitments to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, as well as the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. But I do feel that they should be living within their budget and not be given extra if their budgets run over. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll go back to the seat. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Worship. Well, insofar as the CAO has invited comments and feedback, I agree that the administratively simple option is probably the best option of these three that have been presented, which is to say we stand pat and do not change this policy at all with regard to overages, let's call it, on travel expenditures, additional expenditures. I think that council is compensated by stipend as well for our duties, and I think that I agree that there's it's very clear that objectively true that costs have gone up regarding travel to these things and taking part in everything that perhaps we've been able to do in the past. But just like household budgets, where people were able to take advantage of the cost of certain things to go on vacations or to whatever expenditures family budgets have, sometimes decisions have to be made, that we can prioritize this and can't make that happen. I would be open to consideration, for example, that we enact a policy where, like many other municipal jurisdictions, not all of council is able to go to something. Perhaps there's a rotating number of councillors who are able to attend a particular thing based on the cost, but that's for another day, maybe that discussion. But I certainly continue, as I mentioned the last meeting, to support the idea of just in terms of administrative simplicity, clear-cut policy, and what I perceive to be the most fair approach. And as such, the best use of this policy on behalf of councillors as they serve is to just leave things as they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Deputy Mayor Scryer.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted clarification on the first one. Leave the existing expense budget allocation and do not add flexibility for additional expenditures. We had the conversation that if the budget isn't being used, if somebody doesn't go somewhere and, that their budget allocation hasn't been used and somebody wants to take advantage of a seminar or something, that they could actually, there was the flexibility to allow them to have that, to go to something like that. An extra allocation. So the way this reads to me now is there will be absolutely no flexibility whatsoever. I just want to make sure I'm getting the correct, and if so, I'm thinking, well, if we go back on our budgets for the last 10 years, and if the budgets aren't being used, then why are we budgeting them? Like if it's consistently every year there's money left in the pot, well, maybe that's the money we use to increase expenditures or expenses. I think we really need to look at that and say, where's the money? If it's there and somebody wants to take advantage of it and is budgeted, I think that we should really look at that and let them use it if they want to.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Deputy Mayor. Thanks for the question. You are correct. Option number 1 does remove that flexibility. Option 3 is the option that includes that flexibility. But on reflection of the risk that presents, the risk is as follows, is that early in the year, there is a draw above and beyond the budget allocation, the total budget allocation for all of council. And there, as a consequence, toward the end of the year, there is not enough to cover somebody's total budgeted allocation. We're short by virtue of having councillors use more than their allocation early in the year. So the option remains. I mean, that is an option, but that's the risk of the option, is that later in the year you need to say no. We can't afford or we can't approve an expense that actually is less than what the total normal allocation would be for that councillor, because it's already been spent by another councillor earlier in the year. That is option 3, but from administrative perspective, the thought would be perhaps simpler to say, as it always has been, here's your budget, and you can use it to the extent, to the maximum allocation for yourself. And if you require additional funds, then it's your responsibility to seek those funds from your stipend or from other sources in order to offset any difference.
Thank you, Mr. Watson, and I'll just remove myself from the seat again, Deputy Mayor. And I would have to agree. I think that I believe when there is a budget set for FCM and UMNB, that we should be living within those. If people do not use them, that is their prerogative. That is assigned not to all of council, that is assigned to individual councillors. Then there's a budget for deputy mayor and a budget for mayor. And I think once we start crossing those lines, it's going to be reflected on somebody that doesn't go on to some of these meetings and so forth, then they are going to be, if you feel that you want to go to something else, I think right now we're looking at FCM and UMNB, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, and that's what we've budgeted for. And I don't think that it's fair to take from the budget that is allocated for a counselor, just because the counselor didn't go at that time, if that counselor decides to use that budget for something else in the line of a workshop or professional development, then that should be there without question for that person. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that you could use somebody else's budget. It was at the end of the year, you get to November or something, and there's budget left, that would be the opportune time. You couldn't expend all your budget at the first of the year and then say, now I want some more. It has to be done, but I guess it's too convoluted to incorporate them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Worship. Traditionally, some members of council go to both FCM and UMNB. And the question was raised of additional funding because those costs keep increasing every year. And we don't adjust our expenses to suit that or to keep up with the increases of those expenses. And our costs are not being spent willy-nilly. We have a tradition of going to these two major events, and the other thing is it eliminates us from going to anything else but that, and that's what we appear to be, gearing up for on an annual basis, and we don't have the opportunities to go to any seminars that might even be local. And I don't think that anybody has ever stretched their demand to make two out-of-town major airplane trips to go to a seminar, but still we're restricted in other ones that we can go to. And I'm just wondering if there's been any analyzation of the increases in UMNB and FCM versus the status of our expenses.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. I don't believe there's been anything in our budget, in the 2026 budget, to allow for an increase. This may be, again, something that we'll have to look at in the upcoming budget deliberations in the fall of 2026 for 2027. However, I will go to next in queue. Councillor Bigger, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. And Councillor Olson makes a good point that there are other sort of things that are, in a particular year, at a particular time, on a particular file may be of great importance to a particular councillor who's working via committee work or what have you. Perhaps Councillor Luck would like to travel to another jurisdiction and see what's being done with regards to active transportation in that jurisdiction. Perhaps I'd like to go and see what all the hullabaloo is up in Edmundston about their great new transit system. And these sorts of things are not hard-coded into the year ahead. You don't always know what lay ahead over the course of a year that may prove to be a very salient thing to take part in, a very relevant thing to take part in. So if we were to siphon off bits and pieces of the travel budget kind of across the board, then that may prohibit a councillor from taking part in something that would be otherwise very important that's not one of the major conferences. I just actually, through you, Your Worship, to our CAO, I just wanted to ask a question. In terms of option 3 on this proposed policy, the adjudication by mayor, deputy mayor, or councillor, rather the decision process of, I'm trying to imagine the scenario of somebody asking that they be considered to overspend their travel or learning account. That process of that decision being made, would that create any vulnerability to criticism after the fact that could cause trouble? For example, I know in our January meeting there was some discussion about this, and there was a reference to seeking a legal opinion on the matter, and I wonder if there's any update in that regard as to the vulnerability of making these decisions rather than being clear cut, making them a little more subjective along the way. I thought maybe you'd have an opinion on that.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Bigger and others. Just a couple of points there. One would just to be circle back on the increase to the total expense budget on an annual basis. There is a CPI-based adjustment. So although it is not matched specifically to increases we're seeing in particular conference rates, there is an annual increase in the total available expense budget. To your question, Councillor Bigger, yes, we did consult with legal counsel. We did talk about that last time, in that the observation from legal counsel was that it's a valid mechanism to implement. However, it does, to your point, introduce the subjectivity of a double sign-off by the mayor or deputy mayor in the case of a mayor participating, and a CAO to verify the appropriateness, if you will, of a particular expense. We have not gone to the detail of trying to articulate those. I think that would personally be challenging. I think that the double sign-off provides sufficient security in that it's not a single either elected official or staff member making the sole decision with respect to somebody's participation, but on the balance and merits of a particular person's interest in attending something that appears to have value both for the individual and for the town. That would be the general criteria that I would expect both parties to apply. And if both parties agree, and only if both parties agree, would the approval be provided. Hope that helps, but certainly happy to answer some more. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship, and sorry for maybe throwing something late into the mix at this time. I think for 2026, I think the mayor's correct. I mean, we're locked and loaded for what it is, so that's kind of there. I do know, and I haven't done an extensive survey of other towns, but I do know a few years back I was talking to a friend of mine who was mayor of Campbellton at the time, and they're only allowed to go a couple times during their term. They can pick 2 times. So I don't know if they have a set budget over 4 years, and that's what they are allowed to spend over 4 years. So one year you might spend $2,000, the next year you may spend 4, but you only have X amount over your 4-year term. And that way yes, you can't go to absolutely everyone every year, but it will allow people to have the flexibility. That's just a thought, because then you're not, here's your budget for the 4 years. I know the amount shouldn't vary too much for a global perspective, but it's just kind of a thought out there. I mean, I'm okay even saying the way it is, but I do know that what things cost, and I don't travel as much as I used to, but I got to go to Montreal here in a couple of weeks, and it's $1,300, right? I used to get there for $550 return. Times have changed, and the hotels are now $400. But if you have your set budget for your term, then it gives that person a bit of flexibility too. If it's out in Vancouver, it's a big difference than if it's in Toronto, or if it's in Newfoundland or Nova Scotia. So that's just a food for thought. Sorry for throwing that out at the end. I'm okay either way we keep it, but that may be able to keep a person in their own budget lane, but they manage it over their 4-year term. That's just a thought. And again, I don't know what other communities are doing. And in Campbellton at the time, they've changed, they've amalgamated since. So I don't know if they had a set budget, but I do know they were not allowed to go all 4 years. They could only pick 2 of the 4 years, except the mayor and deputy mayor could go 4 years, but councillors themselves only go 2 of the 4. So that I don't know what other communities are doing, but just a thought for whoever's on the next council. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Miller. Appreciate the question for sure. Couple of observations. One would be that if council is comfortable with the possibility of every council member front-loading that, and there'd be variability in the budget as a result, that's interesting. But possible, for sure, to your point, if council had the shared opinion that was a tolerable risk, and the total amounts here are not, we're not talking about millions of dollars for sure, but I think it would be important for us to have clear direction from council if that's council's wish. Sorry, the second point escapes me, so I'll turn it back to you, but certainly welcome some further conversation. Oh, there we are. Recognizing that the interest here would be to get this one squared away, at least in time for new council coming in. So council coming in isn't it isn't an imposition on an incoming council to start setting remuneration rates early in their mandate. So I think that probably the second biggest gift you can give to them, other than their strategic plan, would be clarity around this piece, so that first couple of years at least of their mandate, they've got that settled. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that we leave the existing expense budget allocation and do not add flexibility for additional expenditures. That would be option one. Option one.
Thank you. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Luck. Are you seconding that?
I'd like to comment.
Seconded by Councillor Luck. And on the question, Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say, like, as a newer council member, I really appreciated the budget, and I'm totally for this motion. I really appreciated the budget and the ability to even have the ability to attend both the national and the local municipal government meetings. I think they're a great learning opportunity for professional development that makes all of us better and does improve, everything around us. But I don't necessarily expect the town to pay 100%. We also do get paid, and I don't think any of us, went into this because of the money. So, again, we do get paid to be on council. So, having some budget to help offset the costs for professional development, I think is important, and I very much appreciate it. But, from my perspective, sometimes you have to put your own skin in the game, and I don't see any issue with that. It's good quality professional development that everyone benefits from. So,
Thank you, Councillor Luck. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, Councillor Bigger.
Well, please feel free to let me know if this is not the right spot to bring this up, but this is the only agenda item related to the remuneration bylaw. And although it's not part of this component of the remuneration bylaw, there is the other side of the coin, which is council compensation. And I just wanted to, I guess, maybe return briefly to something that I think we possibly have skated over, and that may not serve the next council, whoever that might be, the best. And we had made a decision back in December, I believe it was, 16th meeting. There was a recommendation for staff to review the some comparative analyses of remuneration of council. And in January, we had another discussion where there was a comparative chart that was presented by staff, which I appreciated very much, of many jurisdictions around the province. And so there was a determination made, first of all, that we would ask staff to take on the responsibility to automatically review council remuneration bylaw every end of every election term, and so that's perfectly great. The recommendation of staff was that we perhaps consider not making any changes to council compensation, and that we retain the CPI model that we currently are operating under in terms of, just bearing that in mind going forward into the next council. Having done some comparative analysis in the last week or so, I find that the chart that was used in January is now fairly out of date, insofar as many jurisdictions around our province have made updates to the bylaw that governs remuneration of council. And I just wanted to be sure, I guess, and I'm perfectly glad to go along with whatever the uptake or lack thereof is of the council. But I believe that notwithstanding the cap we've included on CPI, as was suggested, a 5% cap on CPI, as our sort of current go-forward model, I think that we may owe it to the next council to take a moment and just reflect on what we are seeing happen in other jurisdictions that tend to be, by virtue of the brief analysis I've done, far less in terms of population, but that are nevertheless landing at about an 85% or so scale of what our council compensation is. I bring this up just mostly because I think that we are often finding ourselves having discussions about what it takes to encourage quality candidates to be willing to take on the challenge of entering municipal service. I have personally felt very blessed to be part of this team, and but the duties, even in just this short first term that I've been in, have increased, and committee duties are, can be a lot. And I think that compensation is a reflection of the seriousness with which we expect people to take the job, the role. And so just by means of comparison, I would look at, these are wonderful municipalities. I'm not criticizing anyone. Mostly I'm just asking us to reflect on our own situation and make any determination that we feel is appropriate. When I look at the town of Sussex with a population, according to the census data, of about 5,000 people, I see that the compensation for the mayor is $53,400. The deputy mayor is $25,600. Compensation for council is $21,900, with a CPI increase as well. And that's as of March 2026. So there's an example of where the chart that was included in our January package would not reflect what is actually now the reality in a town like Sussex. So you're talking about a town that has, let's call it 1/3 or a little less than 1/3 of our population, or whatever. And that compares quite, it's not parity, but it's quite close to what our current compensation structure is. If I look at Tantramar, with a population of about 14,500, the mayor is compensated at $52,581, the deputy mayor at $31,548, councilors at $26,290. The town of Riverview, with a population of about just under 23,000, the mayor is compensated at $56,632, the deputy mayor at $25,500, the council at $23,000, with an annual base percent increase of 2%, a CPI increase that's considered, and 50% of health and dental benefits now covered as of May 2026, when they updated their bylaw that's coming into play, I should say, in May 2026. They just passed that bylaw amendment. So I just wanted us to take a moment and just reflect on that. I don't really have any recommendation. I certainly don't have any number in mind or anything, but I thought that perhaps, I know that the deputy mayor had raised this some time ago in one of our meetings. I was watching some video over the weekend, and I just wanted to make sure. We certainly have put a lot of energy behind our travel expenditure considerations, and I just wanted to make sure we were aware, in the event that we've been looking at the chart that was provided by comparison, and that doesn't tell the whole story, and there are other considerations regards to this, but I just wanted for folks to have a chance to sort of reflect on it. I apologize for squeezing it into this motion. It's not really exactly applicable, but as I say, this is the only spot on the agenda where this is being addressed. So I guess with that, I'll just let that sort of hang. I don't really know. I don't have a motion to make. I could suggest that perhaps, given that there's some consideration of this bylaw being amended currently, that we could direct staff, I suppose, to reflect on this and perhaps return in 2 weeks with a recommendation that takes into account sort of an up-to-date comparison. Look, if it was 2 years or a year down the line and we were looking back at comparisons, that's one thing, but this is only within a couple of months. And so I want us to be set up the best we can be for the next council, to be able to engage, do well, and for people to be compensated for their work. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. And I'm going to throw my 2 cents worth in once again, Deputy Mayor. I will remove myself from the seat. Historically, what has happened is that when or before new council, that is when consideration is given to changing or or increasing the stipend that is received by council. And the reason for that is that we don't know who's going to run, we don't know who's going to be elected, and that way your hands are clean. It's not like you're giving yourself that bump up or that adjustment. And I agree that, you know, there should be adjustments made on a fairly regular basis, maybe every 4 or 5 years. So my recommendation at this point in time, because we have not dedicated anyone on staff to do this study, and it takes time. We have not requested anyone from outside, as we had before, to do that comparative study, because it takes more than just looking people up and so forth. I mean, there are many elements that I know Mrs. Gordon looked at when she did this study a number of years ago. My recommendation would be to wait and whatever council decides going into the 2027 budget, or after this council has completed its term, and by that I mean after the May 11th council has completed its term. But I think at this point, to say that you want to open those books, again, we don't have the budget. It wasn't on the work schedule for staff to do that, and it does take time. It takes them away from, we've got accountants coming in, you know, with to do our year-end budgets and so forth, and it is time-consuming to take our staff away from the work that they're currently working on, moving into a busy construction season. That would be my recommendation, is to hold off on that. And I know Councillor Berger said you didn't have a motion one way or the other on it, but my caution would be that you do want to reflect well going into the coming year. And I think the fact that there is a built-in CPI increase, that somewhat accounts for a bit of a bump up. And I certainly feel that we are deserving of that each year, to have that bump up. And whether or not it's a total overhaul with a consultant study, then that will be something, again, it's not going to be ready within the next 2 weeks or the next 4 weeks even, depending on what the workload is for those consultants as well. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's my 2 cents worth. Councillor Olson, please.
Thank you, Worship. One of the things that traditionally, as you said, historically, it's the outgoing council that has the study done and makes any recommendations for the incoming council's wage increases. I think we have missed the boat in this particular period, that we, as it stands right now, we're stuck with for the next 4 years with our current wage remuneration now. And the only thing that could alleviate that miss, I guess, would be to do a study and share that with the new council to see if they're interested in anything. I know that it's going to be too late for us to make the recommendation for the new council, but we're handcuffing the new council coming in to not benefit from 4 years of an increase in remuneration over the next 4-year term. That's my thought.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. Deputy Mayor Schreier, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the budget's been set for this year, so I think the conversation shouldn't even include 2026, where we are right now. Going forward, though, I hear what Councillor Berger is saying and Councillor Olson. I believe the study was done prior to our 5-year term. This study that people refer to was done by the previous council. So this study is now 5 years old. And if you wait till the next term is finished of the next council, that's 9 years before any reconsideration has been looked at compensation. And that is, I think, an extended long period for that not to be looked at. So I would be comfortable with it if, you know, it being looked at for the new 2027 budget, something like that. I don't think 9 years is really quite the number we want to wait that long to do a recount of our, I don't know how long we do it for our staff, if we do it every 5 years, every 10 years. That information I don't know, and maybe I know it was added on to a study, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Watson. And so I just bring that up as a conversation because 9 years is a long time for absolutely no review of compensation.
Thank you. I just want to caution that we are elected. It is different than staff members and unionized members. So I would just make that caution that we are, and as far as the new incoming council is concerned, I don't think it's unfair to them because they never received it before this anyways, those who are fortunate enough to be elected to the town of Quispamsis Council. And I think the ones that it would most deeply affect would be those of us who are sitting here today. And if we were to, put our names in to return, and if we were successful, then it would affect us because we would know what we've been receiving. But it's not going to affect new incoming councillors. It's something that I would really recommend that we look at, or that you or whoever is sitting here and in your seats look at down the road. I think this is late out of the gate to try and work this out now. I think that it would not reflect well on the sitting council even after you're sworn in on May 25th, for those who are fortunate enough to be sworn in on May 24th, or 25th rather, which is when you take the reins, or the new council takes the reins. So, Councillor Olson, is your, okay, thank you. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Worship, and not to belabor the point, I think there's been good discussion about this for sure, and I welcome Council's direction with respect to next steps. My only hesitation is I would hesitate to characterize this as a miss for the purposes of staff's analysis. We did what was asked of us. We were asked to conduct a review based on comparators that were true at the time, and thanks, Councillor Bigger, you're quite right. There may have been changes since then, but at the time of the analysis, the comparative data that was provided was accurate. So there's always that flex or that constant evolution, I could say, in terms of compensation rates. But I wouldn't characterize the data that you were provided as a miss in any way, or that we are somehow behind. I think there's opportunity for a deeper review if that's council's wish. 5 to 7 years is generally accepted in the labor relations world for compensation, deeper compensation review. So that would place this arguably sometime early in the term of the new council. And if that was council's wish, we could certainly explore that as direction to the CAO for us to engage an external party for a deeper compensation review, which would take into account more than population or other factors, and look at the overarching, overall compensation scheme in a deeper way. So I think at this point, I echo the reluctance for us to try to do more now. I don't think time will do you justice. We could scan a whole bunch of communities across New Brunswick, as Councillor Bigger has alluded to. He's done some. We could do that deeper scan, but I don't think time allows us to do that well and to bring you back solid data. So I would concur. A recommendation could be for a deeper compensation review early in the new term of the new council. But I think the current compensation with the CPI adjustment, because there is an annual CPI adjustment, but that certainly members of the private sector and many public sector employees don't receive. So, there is some inflationary increases built in there now, which is protection against the rising cost of living. So anyway, considerations for future, but I think I would want to make sure that staff are not left with the impression that we have missed the boat in some way. I think we have responded to the questions that were asked. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. On the question, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Luck, that Council postpone the third reading of Remuneration Bylaw Amendment number 018-10 to the, no?
The next one, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, it did. I'm sorry.
It is.
council revise amendment to leave the existing expense budget allocations and do not add flexibility for additional expenditures. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And then part two of that.
What's the other motion? Because-
Okay, oh, so
There is
should
a-
that be removed, that one?
No, this one's okay.
Okay.
They're gonna vote on this one, but there's a secondary one just to do the third reading. next
Okay,
meeting,
all right,
Which we
okay,
should do,
okay.
so,
So with no further questions, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you.
so that first motion, maybe somebody could read it as well.
And I'm looking for someone to read the first motion, please.
Just of the one they just did.
Oh,
Want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Worship. The second motion is placed here just to postpone the third reading to the next meeting. And it reads, council postpone third reading of remuneration bylaw amendment number 018-10 to the next regular council meeting to allow staff time to revise the proposed amendment.
Thank you. The mover is Councillor Olson, seconder is Councillor Bigger on the question. Councillor Thompson.
Do we really need this postpone the third reading?
Clerk?
The amendment's now changed, so we'll revise the amendment and have third and final reading at the second April meeting.
Okay, Councillor Thompson?
I'm confused too. Your worship, I thought my motion was to, was option number, there was no revise, there was just that it stay as is.
The original one had changes.
Yeah,
So
the original one
it
had
is
the changes
actually,
built in,
yeah,
so we're now revising to go back to making no changes.
to the original. But there is a revision that has to happen for the third reading.
Are you okay with that, Deputy Mayor? Mr. Watson, I'll get Mr. Watson.
No problem. No, appreciate your worship and members of council for sure. Want to make sure that this is clear. The motion was to revise the amendment to leave the existing expense budget allocations, do not add flexibility for additional expenditures. You voted on that and approved it. However, what was proposed to you tonight, the proposed bylaw did have that flexibility built in, the 20% flexibility built in. So we now need to go back, make the revisions, and come back to you next meeting for third and final reading. So that's what that second motion is. It's just to direct us to make that, back that out of there and bring it back as a clean copy for you for third and final reading on April 21st.
Thank you. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 10D, proposed excessive noise and nuisance bylaw number 069, feedback review / verbal report from Development Officer, Planning and Development Services Manager. Mr. Colburn, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship to Council. So we did post the proposed excessive noise and nuisance bylaw on the municipal website. As Council was aware, as they would have received in their package, we have received feedback on the bylaw has been presented. First of all, I'd like to thank residents who took the time to explore and read through the bylaw and offer some perspective as it relates to potential impacts or just questions around impacts that it may have on their day-to-day lives in Quispamsis. So very much appreciated. We do take those comments and questions into consideration. So if I may, I would like to summarize essentially. There's a common thread in the feedback that we did receive, and that's more along the lines of the actual application of the bylaw as it's currently presented. There were some concerns or statements around how the existing language would be applied, and then what impacts that would have in terms of just your normal everyday noise or use of your property. As council is aware, with any law, whether it's a bylaw or a provincial law, it is open to interpretation, and that is important to understand. And there can be different interpretations and applications of the bylaw. One of the things that we have continued to present to council through this process is the importance of working with the residents and education. So I think it's important to note that even though our bylaw indicates that, if there's a single incident or complaint or an awareness brought to the town, that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're automatically in a non-compliance position. Part of the process is to obviously follow up on that complaint. So a single instance or the opportunity for a single individual to be able to present to the town a concern indicates or gives them the ability for the town to actually follow up and get context on what that's about. So I think that's important. Just because there is a particular maybe complaint or something that comes to the town doesn't mean that the next step is to actually, go to the final enforcement tool in the toolbox, and then that property or that property owner is in non-compliance. I think if we look at the bylaw and the application relative to the steps that we put in place, so obviously there's, things like a first visit, and then if there's a subsequent visit to the property of a similar nature, then there are tools that allow us to obviously take the enforcement a little further. So the key important thing here is actually working with the resident or working with the situation to get a context to be able to apply the language of the bylaw, and then work with the property owners. And I would go back to, if we look at, for I guess, the point of reference, if we were to look at the unsightly bylaw or slightly endangered bylaw, there are steps. You have to attend the property, you have to collect the information, you have to make the property owner aware of the situation and allow them to correct it voluntarily. I think that's important. So, for example, some of the statements we did get back was, for example, what implications does this bylaw have on somebody who uses a wood burning appliance for their heating of their home? Because there is a statement in there around, smoke and odor and ashes and those types of things can be considered a violation of the bylaw. But we would look at that as being a normal use of the property. Those are normal activities that one would consider reasonable and desirable for the use of the property. Now, from a staff perspective, we can go back and take the bylaw and just apply very minor language to exempt such situations. So things with smoke associated with, wood burning appliances for home heating, we can make that sort of minor tweak to the bylaw. There were statements around implementing things in nature of being able to monitor and establish noise levels. As council may recall, those were in a previous iteration of our noise bylaw, and they became very challenging to actually be able to enforce because there's so many nuances and elements associated with those types of things. A lot of times, if there's an incident, when it comes to a noise incident, going to measure the noise level is after the fact. So based on the recommendations from legal counsel at the time, that was struck from a previous bylaw. So it moved towards more of the working with the situation, understanding the context, working towards voluntary compliance before moving into the enforcement side of things. So this bylaw, as it's currently structured in the language, and the intent isn't to obviously, consider everything excessive to become, an hindrance to people's normal use and daily enjoyment of their property. And I think that's important to understand. So the other thing that was an interesting comment was around some sort of guiding principles that could be embedded in the bylaw. I think embedding guiding principles into the bylaw can actually introduce a bit more of a challenge to actually enforcement of the bylaw. But I think it's important to step back and look at, is there opportunities to be able to provide guidelines around the intent of specific statements in the bylaw? And then that can be used to actually apply or enforce the bylaw. And if we look at even at a provincial level, for example, the Community Planning Act. Community Planning Act is the act that we use with respect to community planning. However, there's a separate document that offers some guidance on how to interpret, how to apply the actual regulations and provisions of the bylaw. So I think that's something the staff would be open to potentially working with moving forward. And I think it's something that we could actually apply to other bylaws that we currently have, just being able to establish the context, the intent of the statements, and then providing some guidance around actually application or applying them. So that's where we are. Again, appreciate the feedback, appreciate the engagement of the community in helping to shape and form these bylaws. They are a bylaw of the community, so they should reflect the desire of the community. I think that's important. I think the bylaw as it currently sits is workable, and I think what we'd like to do at this point in time is just take the feedback we received, just look at the current language that in there, are there opportunities for clarification, and potentially then come back at the April 21st meeting for actual adoption of the bylaw. Thank you, Worship, and I'll leave it there and open to any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Coburn. Certainly appreciate all of that input. And it's wonderful when we have engaged residents such as Mr. Taylor and Ms. Peterson, who took the time to go through the bylaw and to find a few areas that might need a little massaging, certainly areas where they can continue marinating. And as we say here, when we know better, we do better. And you have given this a great deal of thought, and you are always open to having our residents contribute their thoughts or concerns and working with our residents in order to get the very best that we can be. So thank you for that and for all the work that you have put into this. So I will go now to Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Mr. Colburn. I just wanted to reiterate how great it was to actually get feedback. I think sometimes when we work with a policy or bylaw for so long, again, things start to all merge together. So it was really nice to have a fresh set of eyes just to identify a few things that could be tweaked. So I'm really pleased to hear that we're going to go back. And I guess I've always use the analogy that if you won $1 million and everyone went off onto, into an island somewhere and a new person was coming and reading the policy or the bylaw, would they have the same interpretation? So I'm really glad that we're going back and just taking another crack at kind of tweaking it a bit so that it's very clear. And again, I truly appreciate the residents reaching out and sharing, some of their ideas because, again, I'm really pleased to see the engagement and that they went through the bylaw. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the clarification, Mr. Colburn. My only question is communication with the two persons that we had write in. I think one might have been answered, but I'm not sure about the other, just how that communication as our discussion will convey back to them. Maybe that's for Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scryer. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to the Deputy Mayor, my recommendation there would be to have staff complete the revisions and to communicate the intent for third and final reading prior to that happening to both the respondents, so that they're aware of our steps and our processes and our approval timeline. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson, please.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that council postpone the third reading of the excessive noise and nuisance bylaw number 069 to the next regular meeting of council to allow staff time to revise the proposed bylaw as presented.
Thank you. It's been moved by. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson seconded by Councillor Luck on the question.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Just, I guess, reflecting on this, and I'm just going to make a suggestion, just to mull over, I guess, through you to CAO Watson. I know that one of our goals over the next number of months to years is to really go back and redo all of our bylaws and policies. And maybe it would be a good practice to actually have like a working group of residents as kind of almost a second set of eyes, before it comes back to council, just to, again, have a completely different viewpoint, reading certain things. I'm sure there's people in the community that love to do that kind of stuff, to provide a bit of feedback, like, I read this, it's not clear, or, here's, where I see it could be improved. It's just an idea for continuous improvement, but I think just having, kind of a new set of eyes on this, and someone that, is living in our community provided a really interesting insight. So anyway, I just thought I would bring that up as an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Luck. It's a really good suggestion. I think it's fair to say that we're working hard with council to deepen our engagement with community on a whole slew of topics, whether it's Hampton Road redevelopment, Gondola Point Road, posting bylaws publicly, having transparency in our operations here through live cast of our meetings, etc. The notion of call it an advisory committee or a council of some kind, maybe not council, but advisory committee of some kind, is interesting for sure, and I think it would fit well into our strategic plan where we talk about deepening this engagement with community further. So I'd invite some conversation about that as it comes through on the strategic plan and its associated timeline. But I appreciate the comment very much. And I too look forward to deeper conversations with residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson, for that. And again, another caution is that when we do engage more people, of course, setting up meetings and that sort of thing, where staff have been doing the bylaw review at this point along with council, and we have had people from outside, our residents, contributing their ideas, which are very much appreciated. It will take some thought as to how we go about doing that. So we have a motion on the table, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you very much. New business, 11A. Application, 2026 application for financing, staff report from treasurer. And there are motions there. Councillor Bigger, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Be it resolved that the clerk and/or treasurer and/or mayor be authorized to issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation a local government of Quispamsis debenture in the amount of $1 million on such terms and conditions as are recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation. And be it resolved that the local government of Quispamsis agree to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation as and when they are requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the above debenture.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Next motion, please. Deputy Mayor Scryer, please.
Resolved that the clerk and/or treasurer and/or mayor be authorized to issue and sell to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation a local government of Quispamsis debenture in the amount of $1 million on such terms and conditions as recommended by the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation, and be it resolved that the local government of Quispamsis agree to issue post-dated checks payable to the New Brunswick Municipal Finance Corporation and as when they are requested in payment of principal and interest charges on the above debenture.
Thank you. It's been moved by Deputy Mayor Scryer, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. Item 11B, RFQ 2026 5TQ04-4, pre-filled sandbags. Staff report placeholder. Detailed report will be ready today. Mr. Watson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick summary, just to provide a bit of context here. This is not new. I'm sure you've seen this in previous years, including last year. The current EMO forecasting through the Riverwatch system is quite favorable, and significant flooding is not currently expected. I checked today, 1.7 meters versus a 4.2 meter flood stage. So, I mean, there's some room to go, and we have enhanced monitoring on the go as well. I would suggest the risk here is low, but mitigation of risk is what we should be doing as a municipality, and we're well positioned to release this RFQ on an as required basis. So this would do just that in case circumstances change. So and there's no charge to Quispamsis unless it's acted upon. So for your consideration and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council award RFQ number 2026TQ04-4 to Brookville Lime for the bid price of $62,400, exclusive of HST, if emergency measures are required.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote. Motion carried 6-0. New business 11C, RFP 2026 TQ02-3, Qplex pool liner replacement. Staff report from Director of Community Services. Councillor Bigger, please.
Your Worship, I move council award RFP number 2026 TQ02-3 for the pool liner replacement at the Qplex to Reka, perhaps Vinyl Works, for the bid price of $288,641 plus HST.
It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm definitely for this because obviously it met all the specs, but I'm just wondering, do these companies have different warranties, or are they all basically the same for the vinyl cover? I didn't know if some have a 15-year warranty, 20-year warranty, et cetera. I don't know if that was part of the specs, but it was just something I was wondering. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. That would have been included in the spec. They would have all been on the same, and I can't speak to what that would be right at this moment, but I can look into that.
No, it's okay. I was just curious.
Thank you. From experience, they don't give you much more than 10 years. And I don't know if something that large would, no. But yes, 10 years these days are the max. So I'm sure we can look that up. So moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Deputy Mayor Scryer. On the question, let's vote. Motion carried 6-0. Reports. You have reports there for your review. Councillor Olson?
No, nothing.
No? Okay. Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. I know the email from Leslie Lundgren regarding commercial property. It says in here that they've actually, that's something that unfortunately we don't get involved with, but it is their right and they should be challenging their assessment if they deem it too high, because that's not something that we get into. So I know they've asked for written response, but they've already put their challenge, I guess, into the province, and that's where it stands. So we don't get involved in those kind of things. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. New business arising from committee of the whole? There was none. Looking for an adjournment. Counselor Miller. Or, sorry, Counselor Olson. Oh, you're not going to take it. I didn't do it. No. And Counselor Olson's light was flashing, so definitely Counselor Olson. So it's been moved by Counselor Olson, seconded by Counselor Miller. On the question, please vote. Motion carried. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Enjoy the snow this evening. It's supposed to snow later on, I guess.